Ever been stabbed in the back at work? I was by my own boss. After pouring my soul into a game-changing project for 4 months, I earned 2 Super Bowl tickets as a personal thank you. But my arrogant boss, Victor, stole them, claiming they were company property for an investor. Spoiler, it was his drunk cousin. In this wild revenge story, I turned the tables, exposed his lies, got him fired, and watched his career burn to ashes. From workplace betrayal to sweet justice, this is how I got the last laugh and a dream job. Want to know how I flipped a Super Bowl theft into a career comeback? Watch now to see a smug boss get what he deserves, complete with a viral video twist that sealed his fate. Hit that like button if you've ever faced a toxic boss, and subscribe for more real-life drama and comeback stories. Drop a comment. Have you ever gotten revenge at work? Let's talk. I didn't realize how much 4 months could break you until I was staring at a spreadsheet at 3 a.m., wondering if I'd ever see daylight again. My name's Lana, and back then, I was just a data analyst at a consulting firm, a cog in a machine that didn't care if I rusted out. But that project was my shot. 4 months of late nights, cold coffee, and canceled plans, all for a market research gig that could land us $1 million contract. I wasn't just crunching numbers, I was pouring my soul into those charts. Every cell a piece of me screaming to prove I was more than a desk jockey. My apartment became a war zone of takeout boxes and sticky notes. I'd stumble to my desk each morning, eyes burning, fingers trembling from too much caffeine. Friends stopped texting, they knew I'd ghosted them for this. My mom called once, worried, and I lied, said I was fine, even as my voice cracked. I wasn't fine. I was obsessed. Every pivot table, every trend line, it was a lifeline to something bigger, a chance to show the suits upstairs I wasn't invisible. And then, after 120 days of hell, it paid off. The client signed. I sat in the boardroom, watching their CEO nod at my presentation, my heart hammering so loud I thought it'd burst. I did it. Me. That night, I got the email. I was alone, slumped in my chair, when it pinged. Lana, you've outdone yourself. Consider these a personal thank you. Enjoy the game. Attached was a confirmation, 2 Super Bowl tickets, premium seats. My hands shook as I opened it. The Super Bowl. I'm a football nut, grew up screaming at the TV with my dad, dreaming of those stadium lights. This wasn't just a reward. It was a damn miracle. I pictured it. The roar of the crowd, the crisp air, me finally living a moment that wasn't trapped behind a screen. I printed the email, held it like a trophy, and whispered to myself, "You earned this." But something nagged at me. The tickets were sent to Victor, my boss, the guy who handled client gifts. He was the type who'd swagger into meetings like he owned the place, all slick hair and fake smiles. I figured he'd hand them over soon, maybe even pat me on the back for once. I imagined him walking in, tossing the envelope on my desk with a "good job, kid." Naive, right? I should have known better. 4 months of grinding had taught me a lot, but not enough about people like him. I went to bed that night buzzing, clutching that email, oblivious to the storm brewing. Turns out the real game wasn't on the field. It was about to start right here, in my own office. 3 days after that email, I was still riding the high. I'd pinned the printed confirmation to my corkboard, right next to my monitor, a little beacon of hope glowing amid the spreadsheets. Every time I glanced at it, my stomach did a flip. Super Bowl tickets, mine, earned with my own sweat. I'd even started planning. Maybe I'd take my dad, watch his eyes light up like they used to when we'd huddle around our old TV. I was buzzing, practically bouncing in my chair, waiting for Victor to call me in and hand them over. He had to, right? The client sent them to him, sure, but the email said personal thank you. My name was on it. That meant something. Then he walked in. No knock, no warning, just Victor, striding into my cramped office like he was doing me a favor by showing up. His suit was pristine, tie knotted tight, but his smirk? That was the real tell. It wasn't the rare good job grin I'd hoped for. It was sharper, smugger, like a cat that had caught a mouse and wasn't done playing with it. He leaned against my desk, arms crossed, and I felt the air shift. "Heard you got some great news," he said, voice smooth as oil. I perked up, nodding, expecting the envelope to slide across the table. "Yeah, the ticket's crazy, right? I put everything into that project." He chuckled, but it wasn't warm. It was the kind of laugh that makes your skin prickle. "You did, which is why I'm here." My smile faltered. He straightened, towering over me, and dropped the bomb. Those tickets? They're a gift to the firm, Lana. Clients don't get how we work. I'm taking them. Got a potential investor lined up. It's a smart play. My brain short-circuited. I blinked, mouth dry, and managed a weak. What? He waved a hand like I was a kid whining about a toy. It's about relationships. You'll get other chances. Be grateful you've got a job. I gripped the armrests of my chair, nails digging into the fabric. 4 months, 120 nights of my life. And he was snatching my reward like it was nothing. My chest burned, a scream clawing up my throat, but his eyes were on me, daring me to snap. I could have yelled, could have told him the email said personal, that this was mine, not his. But something stopped me. Maybe it was the way he patted my desk, like I was a dog he'd just fed a scrap. Or maybe it was the flicker of a plan sparking in my head. I swallowed the fire, forced my lips into a tight, toothy smile, and said, "Well, enjoy the game, Victor." He grinned, satisfied, and sauntered out, leaving me alone with the hum of my computer. The second the door clicked shut, my hands clenched into fists, nails biting my palms. I stared at that pinned email, my triumph turned to ash. He thought he'd won. He thought I'd roll over, but as my breathing slowed, a cold, sharp calm settled in. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. Victor had just lit a fuse. He had no idea how big the explosion would be. The moment Victor's footsteps faded down the hall, I unclenched my fists and let out a shaky breath, the air catching in my throat like I'd been holding it too long. My office felt smaller, the walls pressing in, that pinned email on the corkboard glaring at me like a taunt. I wanted to rip it down, shred it into confetti, scream until the whole floor heard. But what would that get me? A write-up in my file? A smug, "I told you so," from Victor as he sipped overpriced beer in those premium seats. My seats? No way. I'd spent 4 months playing by their rules, bending over backwards for this company, pouring my life into those numbers. He thought he could just take it all, pat me on the head like some obedient kid, and walk away. He was dead wrong. I wasn't that girl anymore. I'd make him regret this. I just had to be smarter than him. I grabbed my phone, hands still trembling, the cold glass slippery against my sweaty palms. I pulled up the client's email again, the words glowing on the screen. A personal thank you. My name, not Victor's, not the firm's. That was my leverage, my lifeline. I paced the room, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead like a swarm of angry bees, my sneakers scuffing the worn gray carpet. Confronting Victor was a non-starter. He'd twist it, paint me as the hysterical one, probably flash that oily grin while he did it. HR? They'd back the guy with the corner office every time. I'd seen it happen to others. But the client, Mr. Hayes, he'd cared enough to reward me. He'd shaken my hand after that presentation, his grip firm, his eyes warm with respect. Maybe he'd care enough to hear me out. My pulse quickened, a drumbeat in my ears. It was a risk, yeah, but sitting here stewing, letting Victor win? That wasn't an option. I'd rather go down swinging. I sank back into my chair, the springs creaking under me like a tired sigh, and opened a text to Hayes. My thumbs hovered over the screen, the cursor blinking like it was daring me. Too direct, and I'd sound like a whiner. Victor stole my tickets, wawa. Too vague, and he'd brush it off with a, "That's too bad." I chewed my lip, the bitter taste of my chapstick grounding me, then typed, "Hey, Mr. Hayes, just wanted to say thanks again for those Super Bowl tickets. Crazy thing they ended up with someone else here. Hope to catch up soon." I hit send before I could overthink it, my stomach twisting into a tight, nauseous knot. It was done. No yelling, no tears, just a nudge, a little pebble tossed into the pond. Now I'd wait for the ripples to hit. Less than a minute later, my phone buzzed on the desk, rattling against a stack of pens. I snatched it up, heart slamming against my ribs. "Are you kidding me? Who took them?" Hayes's reply stared back at me, sharp and pissed, the words practically vibrating with fury. I froze, rereading it, a grin tugging at my lips, despite the adrenaline flooding my veins. He wasn't just curious, he was livid. I tapped back, playing it cool. "Not sure, honestly. I just know they didn't make it to me. No big deal, though." My finger lingered over the send button, then pressed it. No big deal, total bullshit. It was a huge deal to me, to him. And Hayes knew it too. "Those were meant for you," he shot back. all caps screaming his outrage. "Let me handle this, say nothing." I leaned back, chair squeaking, and let out a slow, shaky laugh that echoed in the empty room. Bingo, I didn't know what he'd do call Victor. Storm the office with a baseball bat? But I didn't care. The fuse was lit, and I wasn't the one who'd get burned. Victor thought he'd played me, strutted off with my prize like some untouchable king. He had no clue the throne he sat on was rigged to collapse. I glanced at that email on the corkboard one last time, its edges curling from the heat of my stare, then flicked off my monitor. The screen went black, reflecting my silhouette, calm, steady, ready. Monday was going to be one hell of a show, and I'd have the best seat in the house. Monday morning hit like a freight train. I walked into the office, coffee in hand, my nerves buzzing like a live wire. The place was humming, phones ringing, keyboards clacking, but there was a weird edge to it. Like everyone knew something was coming. I'd spent the weekend replaying Hayes' texts, his anger looping in my head. Let me handle this. What did that even mean? I hadn't said a word to anyone, just like he'd asked, but my stomach churned with a mix of dread and glee. I slid into my chair, the familiar creak grounding me, and waited. Whatever was about to happen, I'd set it in motion. Now it was showtime. Around 9:30, the conference room invite popped up. Client review, mandatory, now. My pulse spiked. I grabbed my notebook, smoothed my hair, and headed down the hall. The glass-walled room was already packed senior partners in their stiff suits, Victor lounging at the head of the table like a king on a throne, legs crossed, sipping his espresso. He barely glanced at me as I slipped in, but I caught the smug tilt of his mouth. He thought he was untouchable. Then Hayes walked in, his face a storm cloud, and a woman I didn't recognize trailed him, sharp suit, sharper eyes. The air thickened. Victor's smirk flickered. "Lana," Hayes said, voice clipped, cutting through the room's murmur. "Did you enjoy the game?" Every head swiveled to me. I blinked, tilting my head like I was confused, my pen tapping softly against my notebook. "The game? Oh, the Super Bowl? I didn't go." Hayes' eyes darkened, a vein pulsing in his neck. Victor shifted in his seat, chuckling nervously. "Yeah, a bit of a mix-up," he said, waving a hand. "Lana couldn't make it, so I—" Hayes cut him off, voice like a blade. "So who did?" The room went dead silent. Victor's espresso cup clinked against the saucer, his fingers twitching. I took a client," he stammered, sweat beading on his forehead. The woman Andrea, VP of something or other, I'd learn later, leaned forward, her gaze pinning him like a bug. "Which client?" Victor's mouth opened, closed, opened again, a fish gasping on dry land. I bit the inside of my cheek to keep from grinning. He hadn't taken a client. I'd overheard him Friday, bragging in the break room, 40-yard line, taking my cousin Big Football Guy. You know how it is. His cousin. Not an investor, not a deal maker. A freeloading slob who'd probably spilled nachos on my seats. Hayes leaned back, arms crossed, disgust rolling off him. "I sent those tickets for Lana. 4 months of work, and you took them?" Victor's face flushed red, then pale. "It was for the firm," Andrea interrupted, voice cold. "Did you expense the trip?" His silence screamed louder than any confession. I sat there, heart pounding, watching him squirm. He dug his grave, shovel by shovel, and I hadn't lifted a finger. Hayes shook his head. "I don't work with thieves." Victor jolted upright. "Wait, let's—" But Andrea nodded at the partners. "We'll handle it." The meeting ended, and Victor stormed out, the glass door rattling behind him. I stayed still, notebook in my lap, a slow fire warming my chest. He was done, and I was just getting started. Victor's exit left the office eerily quiet, a hush that buzzed with whispers and stolen glances. I trudged back to my desk, the conference room showdown looping in my head, his flushed face, that rattling door. I should have felt victorious, but a knot twisted in my gut, heavy and cold. He'd gone down too fast, too loud. Guys like Victor don't slink off, they bite back. I dropped into my chair, the springs groaning under me, and stared at my blank monitor, its dark surface reflecting my tight jaw. The email on the corkboard curled at the edges, a trophy I wasn't sure I'd fully won. Something was coming. I could smell it, sharp and sour like rain before a storm. By noon, the whispers grew teeth. I lingered by the break room coffee machine, stirring sugar I didn't need. Catching fragments, Victor's pissed. He's calling people. My coffee went cold, the mug trembling in my hand. Then my phone buzzed, a jolt against my thigh. Unknown number. You think you're clever? Enjoy your little win. It won't last. My throat tightened, the bitter taste of adrenaline flooding my mouth. It was him. I knew it. I shoved the phone back, heart thudding. He wasn't done. He was coiling to strike. Next morning, it hit. An HR email. Immediate meeting, mandatory. My stomach plummeted, a stone in free fall. I grabbed my notebook, fingers brushing its frayed edges, and walked to the glass-walled room. The air reeked of bleach and tension. Denise from HR sat stiffly, her clipboard swapped for a lone sheet, while Victor loomed opposite, tie gone, eyes glinting like a trapped wolf. "Lana, sit," Denise said, voice taut. My sneakers squeaked on the tile as I obeyed. Victor leaned forward, fake concern dripping like syrup. "I hate doing this, but your text to Hayes? That's a confidentiality breach." A laugh slipped out before I could stop it, sharp and disbelieving. "Confidentiality?" My voice cut through, steadier than I felt. "You mean the tickets you stole?" His jaw twitched, a crack in his facade. "Company property," he snapped. "You ran to a client, stirring shit, disloyal." Denise shifted, pen tapping the table. "Victor says you leaked internal matters." I crossed my arms, the chair's cold metal biting my spine. "Like how you expensed a trip for your cousin with my tickets?" His face darkened, a vein pulsing in his temple. "That's not..." I leaned in, heat flaring in my chest. "Hayes called it theft. Everyone heard." Denise flinched at theft, her pen stalling. Victor's voice dropped, venomous. "You're not untouchable. I've got friends in this industry. You're done." My pulse hammered, but I locked eyes with him, unflinching. Denise sighed. "Victor, there's no violation. Lana didn't leak anything sensitive, just asked about her gift. You're under review." He froze, then shoved his chair back, the scrape echoing like a gunshot. "This isn't over," he hissed, storming out. Denise nodded. "You're free to go?" I stood, legs steady despite shaky hands. He was rabid now. I'd won this round, but the war was just heating up. Victor's threat hung over me like a storm cloud, dark and heavy, as I left that HR room. My hands shook, but I balled them into fists, shoving them into my pockets. "Friends in the industry." The words echoed, a knife twisting in my gut. I'd seen what guys like him could do, blackball you, spread rumors, turn your name to mud. I trudged back to my desk. The office hum, a dull roar in my ears. The corkboard email stared at me, a reminder of what I'd fought for and what I could still lose. He wasn't just after my tickets anymore. He wanted my whole career. I wasn't going down without a fight, but I couldn't do it alone. That afternoon, I lingered by the printer, pretending to collate reports, when I heard her voice low, sharp, familiar. "Victor's a snake, always has been." I glanced up. Jade stood there, arms crossed, her dark hair pulled back tight, eyes glinting with something fierce. She'd been a designer here, brilliant with visuals, until Victor canned her last year for refusing unpaid overtime. I'd liked her, quiet, no nonsense, the kind of person who'd call bullshit when she saw it. "Hey, Jade," I said, cautious. "Didn't know you were back," she smirked, leaning against the wall. "I'm not, just picking up some old files. Heard about your Super Bowl mess." My chest tightened, but her tone wasn't pity, it was fire. "Yeah, he's gunning for me now," I admitted, stapler clicking in my hand. She nodded like she'd expected it. "He tried to ruin me too, spread lies, tanked my gigs. I've got dirt on him, Lana. You want it?" My breath caught. "Dirt?" I set the stapler down, the metal cool against my fingers. "What kind of dirt?" She stepped closer, voice dropping. "Files, emails, proof he fudged client reports, pocketed bonuses. I kept copies when he screwed me over." I stared at her, heart pounding. This wasn't just a lifeline, it was a damn bazooka. "Why help me?" I asked, suspicion creeping in. Jade shrugged, but her eyes softened. "You're not like him, and I hate bullies." I swallowed, the weight of her words sinking in. She wasn't just some ex-coworker, she was a mirror, someone else he'd burned. I nodded, slow and sure. "Let's bury him." Her grin widened, a spark igniting between us. "Meet me tonight, coffee shop on 5th. I'll bring everything." I spent the rest of the day on edge, the clock ticking too slow, my mind racing. Jade's offer was a gamble trusting her could backfire, but sitting still while Victor swung his friends at me wasn't an option. By 7 p.m., I sat in that dingy coffee shop, the smell of burnt beans thick in the air, my knee bouncing under the table. Jade slid into the booth, a USB drive clattering between us. "It's all here," she said, voice steady. "He's toast if this gets out." I picked it up, the tiny thing heavy in my palm. A loaded gun I hadn't asked for but damn well needed. Victor thought he'd cornered me. He had no idea I'd just found the key to his cage, and I was about to turn the lock. The USB drive burned in my hand as I left the coffee shop. Jade's nod etched in my brain. I walked home under flickering streetlights, breath puffing in the cold. Every step a drumbeat of doubt. What if Jade was setting me up? What if Victor's friends crushed me first? But the drive's weight silenced those fears. This wasn't just about tickets. It was every late night, every time he dismissed me, Jade, others. I gripped it tighter, knuckles whitening, my resolve hardening like steel. At home, I plugged it into my laptop, the screen's glare stinging my tired eyes. The room smelled of stale takeout, air thick with tension. Jade hadn't lied. Emails, spreadsheets, receipts, a roadmap of Victor's greed. He'd padded client hours, skimmed bonuses, forged signatures on my reports. My stomach twisted, rage boiling as I saw one from Jade's project he'd stolen her overtime, then axed her. I leaned back, chair creaking, staring at the cracked ceiling. This wasn't a one-off, it was his game. I pictured his smug face, and my hands itched to smash something. Instead, I hit print. Next morning, I emailed Hayes and Denise. "Found something Victor, meet?" My hands shook, coffee sloshing onto my desk. Hayes shot back, 11 a.m., my office. And Denise added, "I'll come." I stuffed 10 damning pages into my bag, paper crinkling like autumn leaves. At Hayes' office, the air smelled of leather and faint cologne. He sat tie loose, eyes sharp. Denise clutched her clipboard, pale. I slid the stack over, the rustle loud. "Victor didn't just take my tickets," I said, voice steady, despite my pounding heart. "He's been stealing from you both." Hayes flipped through, jaw clenching. Denise gasped at her forged signature, pen clattering. "This is fraud," she whispered. Hayes slammed the pages down, chair scraping. "He's finished. I'm pulling my contract unless you fix this." Denise scribbled, panic in her eyes. Victor's mess could sink us all. "We'll investigate," she said, then softer. "Lana, we owe you an apology." I shrugged, the words flat after months of being a ghost. Hayes leaned in, voice warm. "You're wasted there. Join my team strategy. Real pay." My breath hitched, but I kept cool. "Send an offer," he grinned, a rare thaw. Back at work, an email pinged. "Victor under investigation." Whispers exploded, eyes darting to me. I sat still, the corkboard email finally mine. Victor's empire was dust, and I'd swung the hammer. The office buzzed like a kicked hive after that email dropped. Victor's investigation was official, and I was the quiet epicenter. I sat at my desk, fingers tracing the edge of my mug, the coffee long gone cold. Colleagues darted glances my way. Some odd, some wary like I'd sprouted horns or a halo. I didn't flinch. The corkboard email hung there, a battered flag of my win, but my chest still ached with the weight of it all. Victor was down, his threats hollowed out by Jade's evidence, but I couldn't shake the feeling I'd dodged a bullet, or maybe fired one. Either way, I was done playing defense. That afternoon, Hayes' offer landed in my inbox. I opened it, the glow of my screen harsh against the dim office light. Chief Strategy Analyst, it read, with a salary that made my eyes widen double what I made, plus benefits that sounded like a dream. Flexible hours, real authority, a team of my own. My breath caught, a laugh bubbling up as I scrolled. He'd attached a note. "Lana, you've got guts and brains. My firm needs you. Start Monday?" I leaned back, chair creaking, the words sinking in. This wasn't just a job, it was a lifeline out of this soul-crushing grind, a chance to build something real. I didn't reply right away. I walked to the window, the city skyline smudged with late-day haze, and let it hit me. 4 months ago, I'd been a nobody here, drowning in data, invisible to the suits. Now, I toppled a giant, and someone saw me. Really saw me. My hands pressed against the cool glass, steadying the tremor inside. But doubt gnawed too. Leaving meant burning this bridge, betting on myself in a way I never had. Could I hack it? I thought of Jade, her fierce grin, and the USB drive that had changed everything. Yeah, I could. By Friday, I'd typed my resignation. My fingers danced over the keys, each word a release. Effective immediately, I'm stepping away. Thank you for the opportunities. I hit send, the click echoing in my quiet apartment, and felt a weight lift like shedding a skin I'd outgrown. Monday rolled around and I walked into Hayes' firm, a sleek building with glass walls and warm light. He greeted me at the door, handshake firm, eyes crinkling with a smile. Welcome aboard, he said, handing me a badge with my name, my real name, not some COGS label. My throat tightened, but I grinned back. Back at the old firm, whispers trickled through texts from old co-workers. Victor was out, officially fired, his office stripped bare. I didn't gloat, I didn't need to. I'd won more than a fight. I'd won a future. As I settled into my new desk, overlooking the city, I unpinned that email from my mind's corkboard. It wasn't a trophy anymore, it was a stepping stone. Victor thought he'd crushed me, but he'd only pushed me higher. And this was just the start. A year into my gig at Hayes' firm, I stood in my new office, floor-to-ceiling windows framing the city skyline like a painting. My desk was cluttered with charts and coffee cups, but it was mine, no borrowed space, no corkboard taunts. I traded the old firm's gray grind for this. A team that listened, a title that mattered, chief strategy analyst, and a paycheck that still made me blink. I leaned against the glass, its cool bite grounding me, and watched the streets below pulse with life. I'd done it, climbed out of Victor's shadow, turned his betrayal into rocket fuel. But the higher you rise, the more eyes you draw, and not all of them are friendly. My phone buzzed on the desk, a text from an old co-worker. Heads up, Victor's talking trash. Says you got lucky, screwed him over. I snorted, rolling my eyes, but a prickle ran down my spine. I'd heard whispers industry chatter that I'd stabbed him in the back, that my win was a fluke. Victor was out, fired, disgraced, his office gutted the day I left. Last I'd heard, he'd lost his lawsuit against the firm, the judge tossing it like week-old takeout. But here he was, a year later, still clawing at my name. I tossed the phone down, its clatter sharp against the wood. He was a ghost now, rattling chains he couldn't swing. Work kept me too busy to dwell. Hayes had me leading big projects, market forecasts, client pitches, stuff that made my old job look like busy work. My team respected me, tossing ideas around our glass-walled meeting room, laughter mixing with the hum of ambition. I'd walk in, sleeves rolled up, and they'd straighten, not out of fear, but trust. One day, Hayes pulled me aside, his tie crooked from a long meeting. "Lana, you're killing it," he said, voice gruff but warm. "Knew you'd shine." I grinned, cheeks heating, and mumbled a thanks. Inside, I glowed. Someone saw me, not as a pawn, but a player. Then the twist hit. A Friday afternoon, I was prepping a presentation when my inbox pinged an industry newsletter. Ex-exec Victor Malone files new suit, claims wrongful termination, cites sabotage by former colleague. My stomach flipped. Sabotage? Me? I clicked the link, skimming the garbage. He was dragging my name into it, saying I'd orchestrated his fall with malicious intent. My hands clenched, nails biting my palms. He'd lost everything: job, cred, that smug throne, and now he wanted a last swing. I could have laughed us off, but the timing stung. Hayes had just pitched me for a bigger role, VP of strategy. This could muddy it. I paced my office, the carpet muffling my steps, breath fogging the glass. Victor was a dead man walking, but dead men can still bite. I stopped, staring at my reflection-tired eyes, set jaw. He'd underestimated me before, thought I'd fold. Not this time. I'd built this life, brick by brick, and no washed-up bully was tearing it down. My phone buzzed again. Hayes. Saw the article. We'll handle it. Dinner tomorrow? I exhaled, slow and steady. The fight wasn't over, but I wasn't alone anymore. Dinner with Hayes was at a quiet spot downtown, all dim lights and clinking glasses. I sat across from him, picking at my steak, the lawsuit article still gnawing at me. Victor's sabotage claim was laughable, but it stuck like gum on my shoe, messy, annoying, a smear on my shine. Hayes leaned back, sipping his wine, eyes steady. He's grasping, Lana. The firm's got your back, legals on it. Focus on VP. His voice was gravelly, sure, and I nodded, forcing a smile. But inside, I churned. Victor had taken enough from me, my tickets, my peace. I wanted him gone, not just beaten, but buried. A week later, I got my wish. I was in my office, prepping for a client call, when Jade texted, "Check the news, now." My pulse jumped. I pulled up a site, and there it was, a headline screaming loud. Ex-exec Victor Malone's lawsuit collapses. Viral video exposes lies. I clicked, hands trembling. Some grainy footage from last year's Super Bowl. Victor's cousin, drunk off his ass, stumbling in the premium seats, spilling beer on fans, yelling nonsense. My seats. The article tied it to his suit, quoting a judge. Frivolous claims, no evidence. My jaw dropped, a laugh bursting out, raw and loud. He'd crashed and burned publicly. I leaned back, chair creaking, the city humming beyond my window. The video was everywhere, Twitter, LinkedIn, even my inbox as coworkers forwarded it, snickering. Victor wasn't just out. He was a punchline. I pictured him watching it, that smug face crumpling, his friends ditching him like rats off a sinking ship. My phone buzzed. Hayes. "Told you, VP's yours. Celebrate tonight?" I grinned, typing back, "Hell yes." The ache in my chest, that old wound from his theft, finally eased. I'd fought, bled, won, and now I could breathe. That night, Hayes threw a dinner for me at the firm. All glass walls and warm cheers. My team toasted me, glasses clinking, their laughter wrapping me like a blanket. Hayes handed me a folder VP of strategy, signed, sealed. I took it, fingers steady, and thanked them, voice cracking just a bit. Later, he pulled me aside, eyes glinting. "One more thing, Super Bowl's next month. VIP seats yours, no one else's." My throat tightened, a memory of Dad and me cheering flashing by. "You serious?" I croaked. He smirked. "Dead serious." A month later, I sat in those seats, the stadium roaring, lights blazing, no Victor, no shadows, just me, the game, and a beer in hand. I cheered till my voice gave out, the crowd's pulse syncing with mine. My phone buzzed. "Jade, you see him fall?" I laughed, texting back. "Saw it, lived it, loving it." Victor thought he'd break me, steal my shot. Instead, he'd handed me everything: freedom, power, this moment. I leaned back, the air crisp, the wind sweeter than I'd dreamed. Resilience had built my throne. His arrogance had dug his grave. And damn, it felt good to watch him lie in it.